This program is brought to you exclusively by Bintulu Port.
The harmful effects of climate change are apparent and is rapidly rising to alarming levels. That is why we have to come together as one to fight against climate change to alleviate its negative effects for now as well as the future. What is Malaysia doing about this? You'll be surprised to know that Sarawak indeed has a solution.
Kasawari Carbon Capture Storage Project of Bintulu and is expected to reduce 3.3 million tons of CO2 equivalent annually, making it one of the largest offshore CCUS projects in the world.
Get answers here on Decimal Point. We have all learned in school that during photosynthesis, plants absorb carbon dioxide from the air and store it in its roots. But this is not enough. Our dependency on fossil fuels have created a century worth of environmental devastation where our access to clean water, clean air, and even the well-being of the local ecosystem, we are constantly under threat. Globally, countries have come together to reduce carbon emissions by 45% by the year 2030, which is a couple of years away. With this being so urgent, what are we doing about this?
Dan kita ada teknologi baru, karbon tu boleh ditangkap. Kena nangkap orang juga. Tangkap karbonnya disimpan supaya iklim kita suhunya turun. Dan Sarawak mempunyai kelebihan dan anak Sarawak pun pandai ngatur hal karbon tu.
Capturing carbon, Sarawak's ambitious agenda. And today, we'll be talking to someone who has been studying these plans. Tuan Haji, despite global efforts being done to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, climate change is still happening at a much faster rate. What is your thoughts on that?
First, I look at the sustainability practices with renewable energies at slow adoption. Secondly, because of the growth in population and economic growth, where it increases the needs of energy and increases the emission of carbon dioxide.
Could you tell us more about what is net zero and what is CCUS, and how can the implementation of CCUS help reduce carbon emissions?
First, I would like to explain about net zero. Net zero basically is a balance between output and input. For example, if you emit 10 kilo of carbon dioxide and you absorb another 10 kilo of carbon dioxide, that is considered a net zero. For CCUS, carbon capture, use and storage. The basic carbon capture is basically trees which absorb carbon dioxide. But because of the industries going up, most industries produce a lot of carbon dioxide, like the steel industries, oil and gas. Planting trees is not feasible because the amount of emission is quite substantial. A tree can only absorb about 25 kilo of carbon dioxide per year, while some industries may produce about 50 or 60 million tons of CO2. So it would not be feasible for just planting trees, because planting trees to cater for carbon absorption will be using a lot of lands, which can be used for other purposes.
This is not business as usual. A new idea is seeing the light of day. The idea of capturing carbon to reduce emissions that cause the world's temperature to rise higher than ever. After years of slow progress, interest in CCUS is growing as it evolves and extends to almost all parts of the global energy system. Tuan Haji, can you tell us more about your experience with CCUS and how you learned about CCUS?
My position was health, safety, environment. So one area I've been involved will be the environment side. In 2010, we start to measure on carbon footprint, which means the carbon emission, yearly carbon emission. So that's my starting point. Then after a few years, people talking about sustainability. Sustainability is words become some sort of words that are being used now. In sustainability, is one of the issues is on managing your carbon emission. So while I was working with one of the ports in Malaysia, Petronas came to our organization to talk about carbon capture storage somewhere in offshore, which is called Kasawari. So that's where I start being involved in and understanding about CCUS. While I was working with the port, people might wonder what's the port role in CCUS. Part of the strategy when we were discussing at the time was that they are looking into getting carbon dioxide from overseas, like Korea and Japan. When there's a shipment coming from Japan or Korea, whatever, the port plays a role for the ship to berth and transfer the carbon dioxide to the land or storage yard.
Now, what are the global implications to Malaysia if Malaysia succeeds on its energy transition and sustainability goals?
Some people might be skeptical about sustainability, isn't it? So, if Malaysia can do it, succeed in transition, which means economic growth and sustainability can come together. That's the first thing that Malaysia have done. Secondly, is that you have attracted, by doing this, Malaysia has reduced the global emission of carbon dioxide and become one of the frontier or successful in greener technologies adoption. You look into a few areas. First one area is about renewable energy. If you cannot, you still have some more carbon to be reduced or to be abated, and a big amount, then that's where CCUS come in, because you can store a big amount of carbon dioxide into the sea, into the seabed.
Now, going on that point about seabeds, right? So, in Malaysia, there will be 3 hubs for CCS or for carbon capture storage. What will be the advantages towards Malaysia if we have these CCS hubs?
The first thing is that Malaysia is positioned, the location of Malaysia is not in the ring of fire. There is no earthquake and the area is quite stable and safe. Secondly, there is a drive by the state of Sarawak and the Malaysian government to start a new business in carbon capture storage, which also support our oil and gas industries. And then the thirdly is not only it creates become a hub, become a potential business from other countries to store their carbon dioxide in Malaysia. There's about 16 depleted oil fields around Malaysia, which is 11 in Sabah and Sarawak. The rest is in Semenanjung. So utilizing whatever has been left from the oil and gas operations. However, currently Kasawari of Bintulu is a starting point. It's a venture between the state of Sarawak, Petronas, and some Japanese companies. This requires a big investment. So by doing this, is something like propel, a snapshot, giving Malaysia as one of the CCUS center we have within the region, showing that the interest of the nation, Sarawak and the state, ongoing into greener technologies.
Developing a well-designed and well-connected carbon market for companies and individuals to reduce their carbon footprint, while also supporting the transition to a low-carbon, climate-resilient future.
Tuan Haji, can you tell us more about your trip overseas in terms of the conference of CCUS?
I went to one of the conference somewhere in Bruges, Belgium. Then during the conference, we have a visit to one of the port, I think Zeebrugge port. And during the visit, there's a presentation on CCUS, I think by the ports, because the port is one of the facilitator for transport of to the North Sea.
And what did you learn there, or what did you see there in terms of maybe facilities, in terms of their infrastructure?
They are quite advanced, whereby some of the carbon emission can be directly piped from the factory, transferring the carbon to the port or to the storage. So many ways can be done. You can use truck, you can use ship. So it's one of the ways is using pipeline, but it's a very big infrastructure. By going into CCUS, Sarawak have taken another step. It's its commitment to reduce carbon emission.
Petros and Petronas are embarking on a project off the coast of Sarawak, where it will be one of the largest offshore carbon capture and storage initiatives in the world. This firmly establishes Sarawak as a global frontrunner in this advanced technology in achieving net zero by 2050. Let's talk about Sarawak, right? Sarawak is set to have one of the hubs or CCUS hubs here in Malaysia. Now, how does that position Sarawak to be the leader in terms of Malaysia's energy transition?
Sarawak grid, electric power grid, I think 60 to 70% is from renewable energy, from dams, or green energy. Around 30% is from gas. It's quite, even though gas is carbon emission, but it's considered a clean energy. Now, you have done on the renewable energy. Now, going into CCUS is to cater for industries that cannot reduce their carbon emission. So, by going into CCUS, Sarawak have taken another step as an objective to reduce carbon emission. Talking about a net zero. And by doing that, it becomes an example to other states propelling into green and sustainable energy.
It's great that Sarawak has all of these commitments towards reducing carbon in the air. But let's also go back to what Sarawak is. It is considered to be one of the most advanced states in Malaysia to have the laws and regulations in place for carbon trading. Now, with this framework in place, how can this further support the development and deployment of CCUS in the state?
Whatever business you are in, you must have a framework in terms of legal framework. So, because of talks about carbon trading, Sarawak have come up with legislation to manage and control the carbon trading, and it also caters for the CCUS business.
Petros, given his technical skill and know-how, is the resource manager for CCUS. with the support of the Ministry of Energy and Environmental Sustainability and also Ministry of Urban Development and Natural Resources.
In recent years, Malaysia has signed a number of agreements with Asian and global companies to develop its potential as a regional hub for CCS. Why was Sarawak chosen?
CCUS is basically a new industry. So Sarawak needs to collaborate with international partners to get the expertise. Similar for other business because it's a new thing over in Sarawak. However, by doing that, they will get a technology transfer to the locals. You also need funding. Partnership can reduce the risk of funding. So by collaborating with other international partners, we can reduce the risk of undertaking this business. By have this partnership also, we can create an ecology.
So what else can it do?
The other thing is that because of the experience from international partners, we can have best practices. They have undergone the process of failures and something. We only leapfrog to get the best practices from international partners. So which means we don't have to go through all the failures or whatever.
Correct. They already have the framework, they have their success stories. We learn from them and we implement it here better instead of going through all those failures. But coming to this point, however, what are some of the challenges that Sarawak might face when they want to implement the CCUS technologies and initiatives here?
With this type of high infrastructure business and going into oil and gas, it is first you need high in funds, high in investment. The second is complexities on the business. These are the challenges for Sarawak. The other one is about the public perception, whether it's a success or not. I mean, you have to manage that.
Could you give me a few examples on the maybe current or upcoming collaboration, international collaborations in terms of the CCUS initiatives?
Sarawak have done few projects in terms of international collaboration. For example, the petchem methanol. They've worked with the hydrogen plant and ammonia plant, which means Sarawak has the experience also working with international collaboration. For the CCUS in Kasawari field, Sarawak through Petros and Petronas have made a joint venture with few of Japanese companies.
Could you tell us more about that? Why do these Japanese counterparts or Japanese companies have interest in carrying out this collaboration?
Japan, as you know, they are in the ring of fire. And one of the, I think the investors inside from Japan is from a steel industry. So they need to reduce the carbon, and through carbon capture in Sarawak, they can reduce the carbon emission.
Okay, because of the industry is heavy in terms of carbon gas emissions, this is a way for them to store their carbons to achieve that net zero or at least to reduce that carbon emissions. But this is all the way in Japan, right? How is it being transported here? I mean, via sea, but in what kind of state or what kind of condition?
After collection from the factory in Japan, for example, from Japan to Malaysia, Bintulu, if possible, specifically Bintulu, they're sending the carbon dioxide via a ship in liquid form for the carbon dioxide.
And why is that so? Why can't they just transport gas and just come over?
Liquid form, you can store more because the volume is smaller in liquid form. So you can store more carbon dioxide inside the vessel, in the ship.
Sarawak has also kick-started a promising CCUS industry. We will have 3 landmark carbon capture and storage CCS projects signed this year, namely the Kasawari M1 project, the Langkabah Golok project, and the storage of industrial CO2 emissions M3 project. According to the CCUS Market Global Opportunity Analysis and Industry Forecast 2023-2032, the global CCS market presents a compelling opportunity with a projected compound annual growth rate of 13.3%. Sarawakian companies are uniquely positioned to capitalize on this nascent market as the region's early movers, and I urge them to develop their expertise in this field, establishing themselves as leaders in upcoming regional CCS projects.
What will be the implications towards Sarawak or the local communities there, socially and economically?
Definitely it's a new business. Now you create another one business, in particular in the oil and gas sector, which means the maintenance, the tugboats, the crew, whatever, to support the support system for the infrastructure for the carbon capture and storage. So definitely you can have created job. Secondly, as the image for Sarawak as a whole, you have created one image telling the world that you are able to reduce the carbon. And then they're giving the opportunity for the industries within the region to reduce their carbon emission by sending the gas to the depleted wells. For a start, maybe it's one of the Petronas LNG terminal in Bintulu. And they may open the business to other industries within the region or within Sarawak.
Now, adding to what you have mentioned, right, new businesses create new jobs. Would that mean these jobs or these potential jobs require upskilling of the current talent in Sarawak, or in terms of training? What's your take on that?
What I see, this is basically like oil and gas sector. Maybe some upskilling in terms of handling carbon dioxide. The gas at the offshore is some sort of mixture between hydrogen and carbon dioxide. So they have a separator unit there to separate the carbon dioxide and then compress and send into the well. So there is some new technologies coming in, but I think it's more of upskilling because the talent is there already.
I see. Would that also mean that if the talents are not available in Sarawak, aside from upskilling, will that also attract talents from the other side of Malaysia, Peninsular Malaysia, or even from overseas? Definitely.
But as much as possible, we try to get the Sarawakian first.
The CCUS, carbon capture, utilisation and storage, is a key pillar towards achieving net zero goals. The government plays a crucial role in making it sustainable and attractive to investors. Oil and gas companies like Petros and Petronas have the engineering expertise, project management capabilities, and financial resources to drive the development and deployment of CCUS. Certainly, it is time for us to identify Sarawak's competitive advantage, leveraging on low-carbon solution projects. Carbon capture is Sarawak's ambitious agenda.
This program is brought to you exclusively by Bintulu Port.